Hello, my name is Jeff Rolka. I want to thank you for checking out my video. I want to thank you for your questions. Thank you for your response. This is a new thing I've been doing. I used to do this live event, so I kind of take questions on the fly. And while I really enjoyed that, I wanted to try something a little bit different. And so we're doing community questions, and this is our third episode. So I use the YouTube community tab, which if you go to the channel homepage, then there's a tab that says community. And if you click on that, then you'll find out where you can post questions. And every so often I sort of put out a call for questions, and I wait for 24, 48 hours, and then I tell you that the question period is closed. Then I answer those questions, and that's what this is all about. Now, this is a longer video, but don't fret. That's a pun, intentional, like a guitar fret. Right now you're thinking, gosh, I'm glad this guy's not a comedian. I would not be a comedian for long, most likely. I think I'm funny. Anyways, okay, so community questions, I'm going to answer your questions. I'm not going to faff about. I'm going to get right to it. I don't say people's names. I respect your anonymity, but I will read out like the snippet of the question, and you can always go back and reference the questions if you want. Of course, since this is longer, there are like timestamps in the description. So if you're looking for a specific topic or your question, just go to the description and you can click on the timestamp and it'll take you right to your question and answer. Additionally, in the description, you'll find ways to support my channel, including Patreon, donations, and affiliate links. And the affiliate links are great because it doesn't cost you anything. Your shopping experience is totally the same as it ever would be. It's just that a portion of the proceeds from that sale come back to the channel to support me, and it's really greatly appreciated. It's kind of one of those win-win things, which is great. So I hope you'll find something in the description that you can get on board with. And of course, I hope you're subscribed, or you will subscribe now too. That's awesome as well. But let's get going, shall we? Have you done any lessons on mixed voice? I'm a baritone who wants to increase my upper range without resorting to falsetto. Thanks for all the warm-up videos, by the way. They're super useful. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yes. Here's the thing, though. The term mixed voice gets used in at least two different ways. One, it's referring to the vocalizations above the secondo passaggio, and it is said to be a mixture of head and chest. The thing about that is that if you are going to call that mixed voice, then you actually have to talk about a much larger overall range of your voice that is quote-unquote mixed voice, and it very quickly gets confusing because technically speaking, our cricothyroid muscles, now the cricothyroid muscles elongate the vocal fold, and that's what facilitates a smooth transition to our upper registers. So there's certainly like a blending of those muscle groups, but the cricothyroid muscles are active above the secondo passaggio, below the secondo passaggio, and even a little bit below the primo passaggio. So if you're going to call something to the effect of hey, hey, if that's my mixed voice, well, hey, so's that, because the cricothyroid muscles are still active. They're active in both places. On the higher note, of course, they are elongating the vocal fold more, and so they're slightly more engaged. On the lower pitch, they're not as engaged, but they're still doing something. That's one definition. Even by that definition, there's tons of information about that on my stuff, on my videos. The full range videos all go into that range. Now, by my definition, and I didn't make it up, it's from my studies, the mixed voice is the area between the primo and the secondo passaggios. So for the male tenor, that's right in that area. And you will find that typically the videos labeled endurance warm-ups or endurance in mixed voice are right in that area. Now the important thing there is that really facilitates a smooth transition. So if in the past, you're getting that airy sound, and you don't want to do that. Practicing that transition from your thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice or chest voice through the mixed range where the balance is shifting between thyroarytenoid dominance, chest voice, and cricothyroid dominance, head voice dominance. As you're shifting that balance, then you'll get that smooth transition across the secundo passaggio and into your upper register. And that's a great way to expand your range seamlessly. Hi. First of all, I want to thank you for your time and the effort you put on your videos. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Just to help people around the world to achieve their singing goals. Yeah. On the other hand, I want to ask you about how can a bass singer sing low notes with more volume. Kind of depends on what you're doing down there. If you're really pushing down on the larynx to try to achieve volume and sound, that's going to inadvertently create more overall tissue engagement in the oral cavity. That's like the stuff, like the space inside your mouth, the oral cavity, A-U-R-A-L. And the thing is that we want a neutral to slightly lowered laryngeal position, but we want to arrive at that by having good engagement and subglottic air pressure such that it dampens down of its own accord in response to the engagement in the subglottic air pressure rather than pushing it down. So you'll need to assess whether or not you're exerting muscle control on the larynx to push it lower, and if so, back off. In other words, go slow to go fast, and work your vocalizations from a more comfortable lower range down to the lower stuff, and then really, really focus on maintaining balance. So getting good subglottic engagement such that the vocal folds and the larynx can release downwards to create that nice resonance in the oral cavity. And that soft tissue resonance is a key component in really having projection and volume really anywhere in our range, low and high. That's just kind of a good overall practice. I'm having trouble harmonizing. If my singing partner goes high, then I should go low. But I end up going high. Vice versa, I can't figure out how to separate the two or block out my partner's voice. Any tips would be greatly appreciated. Okay, well, first of all, there's a couple videos online. I think I can put a link or two up, and I'll do that. That can get you started with vocalizations. Thing about it is that I love harmonizing. It's like one of my favorite things to sing. Honestly, I think I do. I enjoy that more than I enjoy singing a lead part. It's so much fun. And the level of artistry that goes into constructing really, truly beneficial parts is a whole other skill set that we develop. I mean, sure, you can go a third above and call it good, but there's so much more to it than that, and there's so many avenues to explore. So just assuming that you need to go low when your singing partner goes high, well, maybe. Depends on the tessitura that you happen to be in, depends on the melody quite a lot. If that melody is jumping all over the place, then that needs to be considered, because sometimes if you're going low, and like let's say they're on the tonic and you're on the fifth, then it's quite likely they're going to be bouncing down to that fifth very frequently, and you're either going to have to go lower if you can, or you're going to start getting all of these voice crossings or unisons, neither of which really make for a great harmony part. It really depends on the song, it really depends on the melody, and what you are trying to evoke musically from that. So, how can you stay on your pitch? One, try plugging one ear, try plugging two ears. It'll block out the sound. Obviously, you can't do that on stage, but it can be a way to practice and start the process of getting a little bit more independence. You could practice your harmony parts without the lead vocal. So either play the chord changes yourself or get a recording of it. If you can't do that, and then you can start to work on developing your line and remembering your line. And quite frankly, I would learn to sing the lead part too, because knowing the lead and knowing exactly where the lead is really important in knowing where your harmony parts can be or should be. Conditional statements are kind of somewhat suspect because who's to say what it should or should not be? But your options, exploring your options that way. And I hope that helps. Right. Hi, Jeff. I have just 2 questions. I do your vocal warm-ups every single day. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But I'm going on holidays soon and will not be able to do vocal exercises at all. What advice do you have for maintaining my voice without these exercises? My second question is, what exercises are good for balance? And do you have any videos that specifically target it? So first of all, if you're going on holiday, you might just have a holiday. You don't have to vocalize every single day. You can take a week off and it'll be okay. Now, if you're going to go for a couple months, there's going to be a price to pay for that in terms of your vocalizations. But if you have maintained a disciplined practice up till now, and you're just going to have a couple weeks off, it'll probably be fine. If you're going somewhere that has internet, well, I'll still be there, and you can still find me, and all you need is some type of smartphone or device or computer thing, and a pair of headphones and a quiet room, and you're good to go. Or a not so quiet room where people don't mind if you're making weird noises. That's perfectly acceptable too. And I admire that. I admire the fact that you're thinking about that when you're getting ready for your holiday. That's a level of dedication that I really appreciate and will serve you very, very well in your practice as you continue on. But you might just consider having a holiday. Again, if you've maintained a disciplined practice up till now, you may find that when you come back, you actually benefit from having a little bit of vocal rest. Probably the worst case scenario, if it is just a short holiday, and assuming that you're not like clubbing and yelling and doing things that hurt your voice, that sort of thing, you'll probably come back and you may even learn a few things about your voice that you weren't able to ascertain before. In terms of balance, basically my entire channel is devoted to balance of vocal fold engagement and subglottic air pressure. So you can kind of pick almost any of the warm-ups and they are about vocal balance, about balancing out the vowels, starting with the 5 cardinal vowels and then moving on from there. Thank you for your time, Jeff. You're welcome. What type of exercises take the least strain on the voice? Would you suggest them in case someone is sick, tired, etc., or would you recommend no practice at all? Great question. Okay, so first rule of thumb, if you cannot vocalize over the secondo passaggio, then vocal rest is, in my opinion, to be taken. In other words, if you're, like my secondo passaggio is right about here, so I can vocalize over my secondo passaggio, and it sounds pretty consistent. Ergo, it's fine for me to sing. I actually have a small, like a little cold right now, but it's not bothering me too much. And so it's okay. I need a little bit extra rest, but I know that, and so I'm conscious of it, and I try to account for it. If you cannot vocalize over your secondo passaggio, take rest. If you are finding that you are straining your voice very frequently, you need to ascertain how you are using your voice. The vocalizations themselves that are on my channel are meant to help you perpetuate a sustainable mode of phonation. In other words, you should be able to, whatever it is you're singing from the videos on my channel, if you are doing them in the way that they are intended, then you should be able to do them every single day and they shouldn't tire you out. They should, in fact, help you achieve greater and greater levels of endurance and facility with the use of your voice. Sometimes, if we've had a gig especially, and I'm guilty of this too, and if the monitors are poor or in between sets I'm talking too much, then I can strain my voice in those scenarios. And then like the gentle warm-ups are really good for that. And so if you search my channel or if you've got my guidebook, merciless, shameless plug there, it's over on jeffrolka.com. Another great way to support the channel. If you've got my guidebook, you can type in gentle warm-up into the search thing, and then you'll find them, and you can go and do those. And they are meant to be very calming, restorative kinds of vocalizations. But again, can't vocalize over the secondo passaggio? Rest. Any basic exercises to practice for those who even speak breathy, with link if possible. I will get a link in there. There's one video in particular, but let me read the rest of your question. I realized only recently that I have incomplete vocal cord closure. Now, the word for vocal cord closure is adduction, adduction. And what that means is that the vocal folds move towards the center line of the body. Abduction is when they separate. I think it is a bad habit I have acquired over the years, since it wasn't always so. Seems reasonable. Can't do vocal fries or clicking sounds. I prefer folds, so I'm going to substitute chords for folds. Emit a slipping, airy sound with soft, high-frequency noises when I try to. Many thanks for this superb channel. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll put the link in the description. I'm not sure what range. I think I did it in a variety of different ranges, so I'll either put a single link or I'll make a new playlist with those videos for vocal fold adduction in it. But you can start there and then move onwards from there. In general, though, short vowel syllable exercises are helpful in terms of practicing vocal adduction. So, and you know, ages ago, I wish I would have called the beginner vocal lessons fundamental lessons instead of beginner, because the beginner has this connotation like once we've done it, we don't have to ever go and do it again. Or if I've been singing songs for 20 years, then these vocalizations aren't appropriate. It's simply not so. Anyways, you'll find tons and tons of short vowel syllable exercises. We, exercises like that. Also, there's quite a few of the warm-ups that have that kind of thing in them too, and you can use that. But more of a dense concentration of it in the beginner videos. Dear Jeff, it's been over 3 months now, and I'm waiting for my voice to get stronger, right? I still can't sing with my worship team. My throat hurts me to sing. I had double full-blown pneumonia with laryngitis and bronchitis. I can't seem to shake this. So there's a lot more. Basically, this individual is in the care, is in her physician's care, and I defer to their judgment. I would ask them, but quite frankly, with pneumonia and the variety of like bronchitis and stuff, man, I can't. I can sympathize with the desire to want to serve. I mean, you know, I'm to a certain extent, I'm guilty of this too. You can find videos on the channel where it's pretty obvious that I'm sick, that I cannot really sing the way that I am accustomed to because I have a cold or something to that effect. But I'm nowhere near as sick as you are indicating here. So first of all, doctor's orders, whatever they say is what goes, and particularly with pneumonia, that is not to be trifled with. If you have pneumonia, you really owe it to yourself and to those for whom you care for and those that care about you to really take good care of your body and yourself, because that can be very, very bad, like really, really profoundly bad. So take good care of yourself, listen to your doctors. Perhaps there are other ways that you can serve your worship team. Maybe you could do a bit of filing. Maybe you could do some, you know, music collating. Maybe you could make copies. Maybe you could, you know, do other things that would serve them until you are well enough to go back and sing. I know it's not the same. Believe me, I totally get it. I know it's not the same. But there is a time and a place to serve and a time to rest. And it seems like this is a time for you perhaps to rest a little bit. Yeah, and I wish you a speedy recovery. How much, I'm going to kind of paraphrase a little bit here, how much does it take to develop a good singing tone? I'm 22 years old, but my tone is not rich and not pleasant, quote unquote. I can sing in tune, by the way. My teacher told me I'm a tenor. Okay, well, first of all, there's a lot of things here. What is a good singing voice? That's a very interesting question. I may very well have a definition of what is a good singing voice, which is profoundly different from your own. neither of which is any more or less valid. It comes down to a matter of subjectivity and taste. I have things that I like to hear in a singing voice, and depending on your genre, they may be very different from your own. The thing about it is that frequently, if your tone is not rich nor pleasant, then, and you have a teacher, I would ask them. I mean, that's what a teacher should kind of do. Like, the teacher should be there to help you. And if you're unsatisfied with your tone, and you are unsatisfied with that whole thing, talk to them. Like, see if they, like, see what the direction is. Where are they going? What's the plan? Like, is there a plan? If there's not, can you work together and generate one so that you're seeing the kinds of growth and progress that you wish to see? The whole, like, definition of Fach thing, I don't like to speculate on those kinds of things. Of course, you're saying that you're a tenor, and who am I to disagree? But frequently, if you do not have consistent phonation, and consistent phonation, you know, there's a discrepancy here. Usually, when you've got a baseline neutral mode of phonation, then many people would suggest that your tone is reasonably pleasant and reasonably rich. If you're not achieving that, then it's quite unlikely that you have the consistency of phonation in the zona de passaggio such that your actual Fach can be determined. So it's entirely plausible that you're a tenor, but I would also kind of hold back a little bit of judgment on that. And the reason why I think that this is important now is because if you're trying to do exercises and vocalizations that access the range of the tenor vocalist that is above the secondo passaggio, or even if you're accessing the quote-unquote thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice register of the tenor voice, it's entirely plausible that if you are perhaps not, I'm not saying you are or you're not, but if you were perhaps not, and again, I'm citing what you've said here about the consistency of your tone, if you are not, then that means that you're pushing your voice into a range where vowel modifications, really excellent subglottic air pressure and airflow is required to get consistent phonation. You can be delaying your progress by trying to sing too high too soon, if that is what you're doing. I don't know that's what you're doing, but that was one of the concerns that came to my mind when I read your question. So if you want to work on these things, first and foremost, stick to the middle of the middle. And what I mean by that is we all have thyroarytenoid dominant singing voices, and in that range, there's a very small subset, the middle of the middle. And so for me, that would be from like here, the middle of the middle. It is very, very easy for me to work on things there. And then I work outwards to propagate that technique throughout the rest of my vocal tessitura or vocal range. Hi, Jeff. I want to thank you first for the helpful and worthy content you made. Thank you. I appreciate that quite a lot. It really helps me much. Excellent. These days, I'm somehow confused about the thing called voice color. I don't like my tone much. That's phrased as a question. I don't like my tone much. I want my voice to be more special. I want my voice to be recognized among vocals out there. But can I really change it? And in what aspects? I try to, I'm not sure what that word is, some of singing ways and my favorite artists, but it seemed not fitting me much, or I just failed to copy them. Then I became panicked and lost because it's too much and I don't know where to start from. Okay, similarly to the previous comment, I didn't actually reorder these, but this works really well. Middle of the middle, start in the most comfortable of comfortable areas, only a few key areas, and work there. Find some balance. Find the middle first. Find the balance of your voice before you try to sing or or varieties of things that we can try to do to affect a certain tone quality. I would suggest to you that just in establishing a balanced mode of phonation, or even vocalizations, even singing, you're already one of a kind. There is no other voice like your own. And if you again, I've never heard you sing. I don't know. And it saddens me when people don't like their tone much, but I often think that that's more to do with how we've been practicing in the past as opposed to what your voice actually is. Unless something has happened, unless you've injured yourself, then you can find balance in balancing out your vowel alignment, in establishing good subglottic air pressure, finding a neutral mode of phonation, a neutral tone quality first, and then moving on from there to explore other things. But I suspect, or I am suspicious. I'm suspicious? That doesn't really sound really well. I suspect that in finding that balanced mode of phonation where you get an even response with your cardinal vowels, the 5 cardinal vowels that are used all over the place in all my warm-ups and all that stuff, and you find balance in those vowels, you will find the aspects of your voice that are perhaps slightly unusual or different from the next vocalist along the way, and really make you something special. Because you're already special. Like, there's only one of you in this whole wide world. I feel like I say this in every community questions, but I love saying it, so I'm glad to say it again, and I thank you for the opportunity to do so. There's only one you. That's it. The whole big place. This whole big place, which is sometimes it feels so small because we can communicate in this way. There's only one of you, and the voice that you bring to all of us, we may never hear if you choose not to explore it and do those things, and we may never hear it again. So, in my opinion, I don't think you have to do anything special to be unique. You're already unique by definition. Maybe you've got to align your vowels. Maybe you've got to explore your airflow and subglottic air pressure and engagement such that you get good, consistent phonation and you're able to do it throughout the various ranges of your voice. But those are just skills that you have to practice and learn. And you can do them all on my channel if you want to. I hope that helps. Right. I love your videos. I have several questions. First, can you do more videos with vowels like the ones in light boy, oi, for, or, ow, ow, and Yeah, I haven't really done a lot of those, have I? There's two, well, I think there's 10, but it amounts to 2 per FOC of the sort of interstitial vowel sounds. I'll see if I can put a link to one of those there. Second, can you talk about shrillness, sharpness in voices that appears when singing, like in transitions or key changes? Typically the key changes I'm not sure about. That I suspect is the vocalist trying to force their voice into the new key area. That could be that they're just uncomfortable with the modulation, or it's a new piece of music and it hasn't really been worked on maybe enough to be quite as comfortable as it could be. Other shrillness around transitions is just typically an imbalance in the voice. So if you haven't done the transition enough times, or if you have a certain kind of affectation towards a particular way of singing, then you may find that your voice is out of alignment ever so slightly. Not enough to keep you from doing the exercise, but enough to offset the tone quality. You know, it's like one of the exercises that I use a lot to teach registration event is the NG exercise. And it's really nasty, and it's meant to be. Because the point of that exercise is to generate awareness around that pharyngeal brightness, which is so crucial towards having a sound that connects across the secondo passaggio. With it, without it, it doesn't really connect as well as it can. But we can go too far with it, or we can get too accustomed to it. Or what often happens with that exercise is that it starts to get misplaced with a separation of the vocal fold, and it starts to get a little airy. And there we've gone so far with it that we're getting a separation of the vocal fold. And you just need to circle back around, practice a little bit more, and just be very attentive to the tone quality and making sure that you're maintaining the sound. In the context of the NG exercise, if the vocal fold separates, you lose so much air, and the quality, the volume just dissipates, just as you can probably hear. It just goes away. If you're hearing that, then you're getting an abduction of the vocal fold. Practice keeping the vocal fold adducted, and it's a bit of a balancing act, but that exercise is really, really helpful in that regard. Third, my E vowel feels too narrow. Any tips on how to fix it? Yeah, very common to have that happen. Sandwich it between A. This is, of course, assuming that your A vowel is balancing well for you. So, for example, you could do A, and notice the physical experience of the A vowel. Try to keep as much of it the same with E, and then notice it again as you move back to A. If you hear a really dramatic change, either getting to the E or getting off the E, well, there you can tell that you're not maintaining that alignment as well. Try to keep the physical experience that you have had from the A vowel as similar as you can for E. You will mostly notice this in the rear of the tongue. That exercise is quite helpful in terms of helping the E vowel to align better with the A vowel. Again, this is assuming that your A vowel is suitable. If it's not, then you may have to practice getting A or Ah into alignment such that you can then try to use that in conjunction with your E vowel. That's the way that I like to work on it, though, because it keeps you vocalizing, and it also takes advantage of your existing good technique with the other vowels. Fourth, can you do primo passaggio practice for mezzo and alto? Yeah, definitely. I've been thinking more and more about that, and I was probably going to do that before I got your question anyway, but I appreciate the question, and we'll certainly get onto it. Fifth, I've seen titles and search results for other people's videos that say that one should release one's throat muscles and sing without them. What does that mean? Does that just mean not to use the throat to regulate the airflow, or does it mean something else? You kind of have to go ask them, I'm afraid. Because I have no idea what their intentions are. I can tell you what that means to me. And to me, it's somewhat of a misstatement because, of course, if we used no muscles whatsoever, then there would be no adduction of the vocal fold, no elongation of the vocal fold when we're accessing the upper register. And without that muscle activity, your vocal fold is just going to be kind of flapping in the breeze. The way that I read that question is that we are meant to use only as much muscle engagement as is required for the range that we happen to be singing in. Too frequently, we use too much engagement, and that then gets us into problems where we're having vocal strain or we have intonation issues, particularly on higher pitches, and things like that. Those usually develop out of using too much muscle control at the throat or in the larynx. Why does that occur? Usually because there isn't appropriate subglottic air pressure for the range that we are in. So-called support. We have to learn, because it's all a system and they work together, we learn to use our abdominal musculature and the expansion of our rib cage in order to interact with the diaphragm. This creates air pressure below the epiglottis. The vocal fold responds to that, and that's how those muscles ultimately release. Without obtaining appropriate subglottic air pressure and maintaining it throughout the duration of our phrases, the vocal fold will begin to take on more muscular activity to try to sing the pitches that we are asking it to sing. So even when we establish it, we still have to learn to maintain it. And that is my read on musculature at the larynx and how to work with it. I do hope that helps. Jeff, greetings all the way from South Africa. Yes, your wisdom does indeed spread far and wide. Thank you. Fantastic. I'm a big fan. I thank you for the help that I've personally experienced following you. Cheers. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. In a sense, my question is almost linked to the first question. Yeah, full circle. Love it. All the way back on to the top one. Question, as a baritone wanting to become comfortable and stronger with the transitional voice from chest to head, specifically the descending transition from falsetto. Here they've used falsetto, but they've also said head. And they've linked it falsetto back to chest. I'm interpreting that as head voice or cricothyroid dominant singing as opposed to falsetto. The falsetto register is a register above the head voice. I wanted to ask, if you had to pick a single exercise that you would label the quote-unquote best or most effective to practice becoming accustomed to that feeling and training that area of the muscle, which would it be? It almost feels as if there is a gap between my upper register and chest voice, so the transition feels like a slam rather than a glide, if that makes any sense. Many thanks for your wonderful videos. Absolutely, makes perfect sense. Makes absolutely perfect sense. Is there a perfect exercise for that? I mean, there's several that I think of, but it does boil down a lot to the individual and how they are currently singing. The way that you're describing it and your use of the word falsetto, though, makes me a little bit concerned. Because what I suspect is happening, if it's airy at all, you, then the transition between those two registers is going to be exacerbated quite dramatically. You're really going to feel that slam as the vocal fold adducts, comes to a close, and then continues phonation. But here's the thing. If you start with a hollow sound, now obviously those sounds don't match, but you notice there's no air in the hollow sound. It is not and what I am doing here is I'm keeping the vocal folds adducted and I'm allowing them to elongate. And eventually and then eventually we can do ascending patterns too. And each time I'm going to that top pitch, I am accessing my upper register. I'm accessing my cricothyroid dominant singing voice or head voice. And as long as I keep it so that the vocal folds are adducted, and unfortunately, the way to tell that is that there's no air, right? Even though it's a little bit different sounding, there's no air in that A flat. That was the key of A flat, so that A flat. So I know that the vocal folds are staying adducted. That will eventually lead us to exercises where we're doing, I'll just do a 5-note scale. It's just a bit easier. Where I'm going back and forth across the secondo passaggio or across the break, as one might say. I'm keeping the vocal folds adducted. I'm keeping my subglottic air pressure consistent. Actually, it's increasing as I ascend and decreasing ever slightly as I descend. but it's pretty stable, really. And this gives me the opportunity to practice matching tone and developing good, consistent phonation across that transition point. So is there a specific exercise for you? I don't know, because I don't know exactly what you sound like. But since you're using the word falsetto and you're also talking about your head voice range, my suspicion is that there's a bit of air creeping in. And I would advise you to go to that first exercise I showed you. You. And work towards getting that first pitch where it's kind of hollow sounding or open sounding if you prefer, but there's no air in the sound. Practicing with that and then moving on to the subsequent exercises that come out of there. There's a 3-part series on YouTube. It's how to sing high notes. That goes through that technique. I also have a course on a different website on jeffrolkasingingcourses.com. That's High Note Bootcamp, which is specifically about this, and it is as comprehensive as I could make it. And that's not open right now, but enrollment for that will open in just a couple more weeks. I guess we're actually getting on towards the end of March already, but probably the last week of March, I'll start a mini teaching series, and also the enrollment will open shortly thereafter for that course. So that would be my advice. And there's Community Questions 3. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. So much fun. Love the questions. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your questions. Really appreciate it. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. Hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.